Hello and welcome to Dear Dr. Charryse, a mental health podcast where we discuss life through the lens of neuroscience, integrative health, and mindset so you can learn, grow, and honor the space you were designed to occupy. I want to talk about something today that I think holds a lot of value. In particular, if you're in any kind of relationship with another human, because it's all centered around communication and self defense mechanisms. The one I want to focus on today is projection. Let's see. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been in a situation where you were not getting along well with someone? And that person essentially told you or made you feel like this is all your fault. I feel this way because you. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. If this situation happens, we want to do our due diligence, right? We want to listen. We want to pay attention. We want to step back and ask ourselves, is there some truth to what they're saying? Yet, there can be situations, and this is where it gets a little different, where you might find that you're in a relationship with someone who consistently has a pattern of not seeing their part and only seeing yours. And when that happens, woo, 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 you have a significant red flag. I know that there are some of you who are already like, oh my goodness, she is in my house and reading my mail right now. Yes, I am. Let's keep it going. So, what is projection? It's a defense mechanism. It's a means of coping, not an ideal means of coping. And to some degree, all of us have had moments where we have projected our emotions on someone. In particular, we have a big habit of projecting our emotions onto people that we feel safe with, that we feel like, hey, I can kind of blame things on them and they're still going to love me. But you also need to know when that level of projection is occurring so much that it's making it difficult for the relationship to grow, for the relationship to be healthy, whether that's a personal relationship or a professional relationship. Projection, if we look at it from an even broader definition, is when someone or a system consciously or subconsciously, I have a tendency clinically to believe there's a lot of conscious in it, but there are moments where sometimes a system or a person may be blind to their pattern sometimes, but where they subconsciously or consciously attribute that their feelings, their thoughts, their traits, and pretty much whatever happens in their life is because of you. Here's something important for you to remember if you feel like this has ever happened to you. It's not possible for you to be the singular source of everything that goes wrong in someone else's life. So if you've taken that on and you found yourself in situations where you've been beating your head against a wall and trying to figure out how you can change things, there may not be anything to change. The actual work for you to do might be distancing yourself from what that person believes that is a distorted version of the truth. Why do we project? It can be a number of things. Learn communication pattern. Let's say we grew up in a family system, whether it was together or disjointed or dysregulated in some way, where that was the pattern of what was happening. Someone in the home or multiple people in the home, we usually know who those scapegoats are, were constantly being blamed by the way things are. And although we don't like being on the receiving end of that, we can then emulate that same dynamic in the relationship with people that we love. So it can go two ways. We can either constantly take it all in and we blame ourselves for everything that happens, or we can take it all in and think that no matter what anyone says, it's somehow our fault. So we either allow people to project on us and we accept it, or that pattern of projection that we learned allows us to believe that whether anybody would put it our way or not, both places are really damaging because you're not allowing yourself to see the full picture. And when we take on full responsibility for any time there's a breakdown in any kind of relationship or working relationship, then it doesn't give us an opportunity to truly look at things and go, how can we move forward and what's really wrong? I know that that was the longest explanation ever for learned communication patterns, but I wanted to give you an example along the way. It could also be due to our insecurities. So if someone points out an area in us where we feel insecure, where we're working on gaining confidence, and then they respond in a way that kind of takes away from our confidence, we may project. It could also be feeling vulnerable and feeling seen in ways that we're not used to. And as a result of that vulnerability, feeling like it's too much, we can actually project as a means of pushing people away and backing them away from who we are. It could be historical experiences of trauma. I talked about that a little bit in the beginning, but it can also be that we're just stressed or we're in situations where our lifestyle choices are so chaotic and so busy and over consuming that we're not taking enough time to really sit back and go, let me get my head clear. Let me look at where things are and what's really bothering me. It could be generational patterns, or it could be that you're in relationship with someone that has a personality disorder. I could probably do a whole lens, and maybe I will, on how projection shows up when you're in a relationship with someone with our two most common personality disorders where we see this, it can be seen anywhere, is with people who have bipolar disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. And also recognize sometimes people may not have full clinical bipolar or narcissism, but have enough traits that we see some of these experiences. Again, for the sake of time and staying focused, I will not go into all of that. But I do feel like even in just mentioning that, those of you who are listening, if you've been in these scenarios before and you have some education and understanding around those personality traits, you are picking up what I am putting down. And if that's your experience, I'm sorry. Please be careful and please make sure that you take care of yourself. When we are in relationships and systems where things are constantly projected on us, that weighs on us. It not only weighs on us mentally, but it weighs on us physically and emotionally. It can cause physical pain and distress, and absolutely can distort our own way of thinking about ourselves and others. If you've been in a situation where a person has repeatedly projected onto you their feelings and just made it kind of this blanket opportunity to say everything that's wrong here is all on you, what you might find is it puts you into a state of confusion. It can have you second guessing. Are they right? Is this all my fault? And then that can create a spiral of you overcompensating or trying to do things to get back in connection where that may not be what's necessary. There may be other elements that both of you or you in that system can work through to go, we've got to find another way to really look at the root of problems and working through them. My suggestion is always, if you are with someone who has the capacity to communicate around it, is you really talk through it and you go, what are we really having odds about, right? Is it us or is it another situation here? I'll give you a great example. I sometimes, well, not sometimes, I often see this as an element in people that are in intimate relationships, specifically marriages, where the communication breaks down. They don't get anywhere with really working through a situation because it's a projection fest. Well, you do this and you do that and you do this and you do that. And everyone's just stacking up who's the bigger jerk, and none of that matters and really gets to the root of the problem, because really what we want to look at is, how did your perception get here? What is happening that's triggering you to believe that this person is doing that? How much of that is truth, or how much of that is their distorted aspect of truth? So forth and so on. But it's very counterintuitive to emotional intimacy and feeling trust in a workplace if you were to feel like, hey, no matter what I do, someone's always out to get me. It's kind of how we feel when we're being micromanaged. Not only can we be aggravated and annoyed that someone is constantly watching over us and constantly paying attention, but there's this part of us that's like, no, don't be on my back because I don't want to get blamed for all the things that go wrong. I imagine that you've been there. I've been there. I've been there in systems that I have operated in where things have come my way and I've been like, wait, whoa, there's so many other factors to why this didn't go well. And you have to be in a really strong place yourself in order for you to know how much of it is important for you to absorb and really self reflect, because we do want to do our part to go, yes, where is my part? But also, what parts are not yours to own and really belong on the work of that other person or that system. So, how do you respond to emotional projection? First, no lie, pause, take a deep breath and center yourself. Part of that is when you feel like things are being projected on you, it's going to create such a big surge of emotion. It's a big activator. So you don't want to just go in and start responding and get in a battle and creating this fuel that really goes nowhere, becomes very hurtful, and doesn't end well. You want to stop, step back, pause, deep breath, and center yourself. Then explore for yourself, okay, what was it about what that person said or what this organization did that activated or triggered me? Yes, they may have been the icing on the cake, but is there another recipe there that made what this person said so triggering? I'll give you a random example off the top of my head that I'm thinking of right now. If someone came to me and said something where they projected onto me anything about not being a good mother, I would lose it. I'm not saying I'm the best mother in the world, but because that's an area that is so important to me, if someone projected onto me that that's something that I don't care about or I don't do well or doesn't mean anything to me, boom, I would be ready to go into it and I would have to stop, pause, explore why is that so activating for me. Then 3, identify what elements of what the person or system is saying is true, because sometimes people are saying things even in a not so kind way that we do need to go, you know, there might be something to that. I could have said that differently, or I could see how they feel this way. That's healthy. That's a great perspective for you to take for yourself. But then you also want to go, what part of their truth is distorted? Where do you hear that they're taking bits and pieces of a situation through the lens of their own stressors and lifestyle and issues, and then directing it your way? And then the last step is be careful not to absorb any statement that's made towards you that feels like it's manipulative or harmful. Let's say that someone does point out things to you that are hard for you to hear and acknowledge about yourself. It happens. Again, I've been there. I am not perfect, far from it. If it's done in the right manner, even though it hurts, you're going to be able to receive it. You're going to still feel like you're in good relationship with that person, and you're going to feel like you have the room to grow in that area. Where you know it has become manipulative is if you feel like it is harsh and critical, if it feels like an ultimatum, or you feel like it is something that you must fix immediately and it leaves you on eggshells, then you know that there's likely some dysfunction, some dysregulation, and some emotional issues that are present in that person or system. So, what can you do with this information? I think it's just a really great opportunity to ask yourself a couple of questions. One, Do you notice in your own communication around your thoughts and feelings and life experiences that you tend to project everything onto something else? It's this way because of this person. It's this way because this has happened to you. It's this way because of XYZ. And granted, while all of those things may actually be true, it's only so helpful to look at the other people's or lifestyle situations part versus looking at, well, what can I do to help myself given all of these experiences I have? So reflect on, is projection a self-defense mechanism that you commonly use during communication? And as a result of that, it is a barrier to you actually hearing what other people are trying to tell you about how you're interacting with each other. Part two is perhaps you begin to reflect on, are you in a system, organization, or relationship, whether that's a friendship or an intimate relationship, with people who you feel like constantly project on you their feelings and emotions through the lens of manipulation? Because that's the big piece that makes it more harmful than just our everyday projection. If that's you over here, how are you doing? How is that making you feel? Where is that destroying your honest sense of self? And what boundaries can you put in place? Are you willing to put in place so that you have the room to really reset and recenter? I get it. This is a tough conversation. It really is. If you have questions, make sure that you send them to me. You all, I hope, know where to find me on all social media platforms. Send them in a DM, send them in an email. You can send them in through Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. The information is linked down below for those of you who may be watching this on YouTube or watching it on Spotify. Did you know that you can watch this on Spotify? Because I want to get your interactions. This is definitely not a one size fits all dynamic, but I think it gives you just enough to reflect on what you need, what you're feeling. And if you're in any relationships or organizations that are destroying your self esteem and self worth due to the level of projection and manipulation that you may be experiencing, I do hope that something that you heard today you found useful, and that you will take the time to not only share this with someone else, but come back and listen again so that we can learn and grow and honor the space that you were designed to occupy. And doing so means that you care deeply about yourself and that you don't take on everything that everyone says about who you are. Know your worth and adjust accordingly.